Doctor Who series finales. What better way to culminate a brilliant series of television than with a finale that makes you go, what? When a show has all these gripping narratives, when the essentially immortal protagonist is facing off against a universe-ending threat basically every week, it's really important for a finale to stand out, for all the loose plot threads and series arcs to conclude in a satisfying way that leaves the audience on the edge of their seat, suitably satisfied, but also eager to see what will happen in the next series. Unless it's a Netflix show. In the modern era of Doctor Who, there have been 13 series finales, sort of, all serving as a conclusion to the arcs and teasers that have been sprinkled throughout the prior episodes. But do any of these finales stick the landing? Yes. Okay. Do some deserve the hate they get? Yes. Now I'm going to focus on the RTD series finales in this video. I'll probably do all the other series finales at a later date, but right now I want to focus on the series 1 to 4 finales, and the one recurring criticism I see of them. So join me as I go through all the Doctor Who series finales and explain why my opinion is objectively better than yours because I put mine in a YouTube video, cry harder. Also, I wasn't really sure where to put this in this video, but I was editing this video and I just looked and saw that I'd hit 1,000 subscribers, which is just like, what? I honestly can't say I expected to get here this quickly. But yeah, genuinely, thank you. And I promised I've got some big things cooking, alright? Yeah, thank you. Let's go on with the video. Series 1. Doctor Who is back after a long hiatus and is ready to ruin a whole new generation of antisocial children. The Series 1 finale begins with our three protagonists, the Doctor, Rose and Jack, being in futuristic versions of game shows and reality TV. The Doctor is in Big Brother, and by the way, this is technically the episode where Davina McCall becomes canon to the Doctor Who universe.
Big Brother house, this is Davina Droid.
Rose ends up in The Weakest Link with the android, and Jack ends up in What Not to Wear. If this episode was made nowadays, Jack would have absolutely been in Naked Attraction, I Don't Make the Rules. Everything seems fine at first. I mean, the shows seem a little different to how we remember them, but it's 200,000 years in the future, that's to be expected. But then...
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Still better than the modern Weakest Link. This aspect of Bad Wolf serves as a commentary on the rise of reality TV in the 2000s. Series 1 did this sort of commentary a few times, with Cassandra being based on how so many celebrities, particularly in Hollywood, are reduced to sticks to conform to unrealistic beauty standards, and The Long Game being a commentary on the manipulation and fear-mongering that goes on in the media. Good to see the Daily Mail still going strong. Eventually, the Doctor escapes through sheer confidence that he has plot armor, and Jack defeats the killer robots in a scene that was definitely someone's bisexual awakening, and they go and find Rose. But I wrote in my notes, holy smokes, the Rose Zappy scene, and yeah, that pretty much sums it up. The scene is just so good. Everything from the build-up, the tragedy of the Doctor just missing Rose, the way the diegetic noise gets drowned out as the Doctor completely dissociates. Literal chills, and that's not even where this episode's brilliance ends. Everything in this episode towards the end is absolute peak. From the way the reveal of the Daleks is built up, to the scene of the Doctor and the Daleks talking, everything about this is so good. Like, the Doctor's body language changing, his confidence soaring towards the end as he knows exactly how to scare the Daleks, and the army of Daleks all chanting exterminate as we see just how many there are, knowing the Doctor could hardly stop one Dalek just a few episodes ago. No notes. My only real critique with this episode is that the fact that the Doctor essentially created this dystopian Earth isn't lingered on or brought up as much as I think it should have been, but overall, a banger episode. Extremely common 9th Doctor W. Parting of the Ways serves perfectly as a culmination of Series 1. The Doctor having the choice to wipe out all the Daleks at the cost of essentially murdering the human race is such a great parallel to his decision to end the Time War. I know Day of the Doctor was made after this episode, so this isn't intentional on Russell's part, but the design of the moment, with the one button capable of mass genocide, really sells this parallel in retrospect. This isn't a new observation, but I really like how every episode in the series contributes to the finale in some way. You know, The Unquiet Dead perfectly shows the Doctor's level of guilt from the Time War, Dalek shows just how deadly the Daleks are, The Long Game is basically the setup for the finale, the events of Father's Day are what motivates Jackie to help Rose get back to the Doctor, and Boomtown establishes the heart of the TARDIS. Everything else about this episode just works so well. The way, despite all his confidence, the Doctor doesn't think he's making it out of this one alive, the Have a Fantastic Life scene, the scene of the Daleks killing everyone on Floor Zero purely because they could.
Have you tried that new pizza place on Minto Road?
What's it selling?
Pizza.
Are you really British if your family haven't had this exact type of conversation? The threat is destroyed by Rose absorbing the time vortex and basically becoming a god, erasing all the Daleks and reviving Captain Jack, albeit making him immortal. A common criticism of this ending is that it feels like a bit of a cop-out, but I'm not going to talk about that aspect until I've covered all 4 series. So stop right there. Person in the comments about to flame me for not mentioning the resolution, just wait. I'm busy. Also, just after the Doctor regenerates, if you look closely, you can actually spot the 14th Doctor, David Tennant, in this episode. What a cool little Easter egg. The great thing about Series 1 is that it's basically the fundamental New Who series. It's got everything. A great jumping on point for new viewers, a great Doctor-companion relationship, Daleks, a few series arcs that resolve nicely, and it ends with a regeneration. All it's missing is Heaven Sent. But yeah, overall, very good series finale. Good, I like. Very epic. Series 2 ends with Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. It was important for this finale to raise the stakes compared to the previous finale, and what better way to do that than every Doctor Who fan's ideal fanfiction before 2006. This is by no means a critique of the episode. The scene of Dalek Thay and the Cybermen talking is sheer perfection. The episode starts with the mystery of planet Earth being swarmed with ghosts at regular intervals, and this scene alone makes the episode a 10 out of 10.
I don't care if you have come back from the grave. Get out of my pub!
When did it start?
Well, first of all, Peggy heard this noise in the cellar, so she goes down.
No, I mean worldwide.
Oh.
It turns out the ghosts have been bleeding through from another reality by Torchwood, an alien hunting and research organization established by Queen Victoria in 1879 in, to be frank, one of the most bland and forgettable Doctor Who episodes of all time. There's also a void ship in the building, and they presume it's connected to the ghosts, but then the opacity of the ghosts finally gets turned up to 100%. And they're all Cybermen. The same Cybermen from the parallel universe featured earlier in the series. To be honest, the escalation of tension towards the end of the episode is a lot more sudden as opposed to Bad Wolf, where the tension gradually rises and rises. I don't really have an issue with this difference in pacing, it's just more like, okay, we've spent the whole episode being led to believe the void ship is connected to the Cybermen, but then
the sphere is not ours.
And what's inside it?
Location Earth! Life forms detected!
say what you want about Russell, the guy knows how to make a banging cliffhanger. But would Doomsday hold up as a suitable finale? Yes. One thing I like about Doomsday is that it doesn't forget about the core concept of the Cybermen. There's no evil plan, there's no evil genius, just a desire for survival and to grant everyone else freedom from those pesky emotions. With all that's going on in Doomsday, the episode still features the themes of conversion. It seems like an obvious aspect to include, especially since the Cybermen want as many units as possible to fight the Daleks. But the main conversion themes of the Cybermen are sometimes forgotten about in the show, particularly in their later appearances in Classic Who. So it's nice that the Cybermen didn't immediately go down that path again. Yet. But at the same time, the use of the Cybermen in this episode is kinda weird. Like, they were built up as this big threat in the previous two-parter, only for them to get bodied. Now, I know the Cybermen aren't gonna be as technologically advanced or as strong as the Daleks. That makes sense. But come on, the Cybermen aren't even a match for the Daleks at all in this episode, and it's frustrating. They barely have an effect on the Daleks, and I honestly think this episode really diminished a lot of the fear factor of the Cybermen for many people, myself included. Our metal boys deserve better. Anyways, damn, Mickey had a glower. His character progression is really cool, going from being cowardly and jealous of Rose in Series 1 to being this really confident guy by the end of Series 2. You can also see the Doctor's attitude towards him change, respecting him a lot more compared to in Series 1. And while we're in the Sphere Chamber, we might as well talk about the Cult of Skaro. These guys are so sassy, and I love it. The final of the three groups of Daleks to survive the Time War, and they slay. They just have no mercy towards anyone.
You didn't need to kill him!
Neither did we need him alive. This is not war. This is pest control. You are superior in only one respect. What is that? You are better at dying.
So, to defeat the threat of 5 million Cybermen and millions of Daleks thanks to the opening of the Genesis arc, the Void has to be opened, and the Void particles will slurp all the Daleks and Cybermen inside. However, that will also affect all of our heroes, so they all have to go to a parallel universe, except for the Doctor because he's built different, and Rose because she values the Doctor over everything else. Down bad. Now, I'll be completely honest. I don't really like Rose as a character, and I don't like the Doctor and Rose's relationship in Series 2. I feel like they get on too well, and hardly ever have any kind of disagreement, as opposed to Series 1, where they had an argument in pretty much every episode. Despite this ending really hits for me. It truly feels like a tragic end for these characters, and their final conversation is perfect, how the Doctor fades away before he can finish his sentence. The show does not understate how much Rose means to the Doctor, and even if you don't like Rose or her relationship with the Doctor, you truly get the tragedy of their loss. So overall, do I like the Series 2 finale as much as Series 1? No. But is it still a great finale overall? Yes. Series 3. At this point, Doctor Who is an absolute powerhouse in British culture once more, as the masses flock to see whatever the hell this was. And once again, it was important to raise the stakes once more compared to the last finale. And what better way to do that than to bring back... Wait, Derek Jacobi actually played the Master in Scream of the Shalka. The finale begins with Utopia, which is one of my favourite episodes of the entire show. I could make a whole video about how good this is. Wink wink, nudge nudge, stab stab, starts beating you up mercilessly. We begin with the TARDIS landing in Cardiff Bay. But wait a minute, I watched Series 1 of the 2006 sci-fi crime drama show Torchwood. That's where Captain Jack is. And right on cue, there he is. There's also a reference to the Series 1 finale of Torchwood and... yeah, some other time. Anyway, the TARDIS goes all the way to the ends of the universe. And after the Doctor and Jack do some catching up, they notice some guy running from, I don't know, the woke mob or something probably. They run for a bit, Jack almost forgets he's in a family show again, and they go to the silo, where the last of the human race are living in very poor conditions, waiting for a rocket to be completed and take them to Utopia. The rocket is being built by Professor Yarner, a genius scientist, but still a seemingly harmless old man. Whoops, that's actually the Master. This is honestly the perfect example of how to pull off a twist villain. Not only does it recontextualize and add more weight to the already brilliant human nature two-parter, but it just works so well. The Doctor and Jack dropping all the keywords like Daleks and the Time War, how it slowly reawakens the Professor's hidden memories, the sudden bombshell of a reveal when he pulls out the watch, Martha's reaction, the Doctor being genuinely terrified and panicked over the possibility of another Time Lord being out there, the build up to the Professor opening the watch, and then he finally drops the line. And even if you've never watched Classic Who and didn't know the Master, this episode immediately does a perfect job of showing you what he's all about. Then he regenerates and steals the Doctor's TARDIS, and oh my god, it just works so well. Things genuinely seem hopeless for the team. And yeah, Utopia is an absolute banger. The story itself, the continuity, the scene with the Doctor and Jack talking, the reveal of the Master, the ending. This is a certified Hood classic. Next, we move on to The Sound of Drums, which, while not quite on the same level as Utopia, is a very solid episode in its own right. The Master is now Prime Minister of the UK, yeah, whatever, but he also has Riz? The Master also calls out corrupt politicians for valuing political status over their own morals. Yeah, this kind of stuff happens all the time in politics, and say what you want about the Master, at least he's consistent with his morals. Then a reporter called Vivian Rook tries interviewing the Master's wife, showing how some people are becoming a bit sus of the Master. You know, he might be an imposter. Maybe he vented an electrical.
This is not poggers.
Vivian then apparently survived this and also got plastic surgery and ran for Prime Minister over a decade later. I'd say my favourite moment from this episode is the Doctor and the Master talking. Catching up properly for the first time since probably before the Time War. How the Master wants to know what it was like for the Doctor to kill all the Time Lords and the Daleks. What it was like to stoop to the Master's level for once. Anyway, Martha gets chips for everyone.
Chips and peas, please. We don't do peas. You what? We don't do peas. They don't do peas. They don't do... That's me friendlies outside through the window. You gotta talk like that through glass. They don't do peas.
They all go into spectator mode and, oh my god, the president just got assassinated. Quick, someone start a sci-fi show. Things really feel hopeless at the end of this episode. The previous two finales at least had some kind of hope or chance of the threat being stopped by the end of the first part. But damn, this is just the average day for the UK. But yeah, The Sound of Drums serves as a good second part to this trilogy, raising the stakes incredibly high to the point where it looks like there's genuinely no hope for the planet. The only thing that could stop the Master now is the power of friendship. Okay, Last of the Time Lords gets a bit of a bad rap. And yeah, it's definitely the weakest RTD series finale. But if you look past the whole Doctor being Jesus and Martha's almost good departure, you're left with a good post-apocalyptic finale. Utopia mainly focused on Jack, The Sound of Drums mainly focused on the Doctor, now the focus is on Martha, as she travels the world, spreading hope and telling others about the Doctor. Now, the resolution itself. Yeah, even with all the established build-up, it still feels like a little bit of a stretch. I'm gonna be honest, if it wasn't for Murray Gold's score, I genuinely don't think this scene would have any defenders. Could you imagine if Chibnall wrote this? As for Lucy shooting the Master, I see a lot of people say it's a bit out of nowhere, and in terms of what we see on screen, I kinda get that. There are a couple of quite subtle moments where Lucy shows some level of doubt or contempt for the Master, but they're quite easy to miss. I have no doubt the Master has been mistreating her for the past year though, and she definitely grew to resent him, so I can understand her motive. I just wish it was built up to a tiny bit more. You know, have her call him an asshole under her breath or something. At the end of the episode, Martha decides to leave the TARDIS. A wise decision as she prioritizes her family and is pretty sick of the Doctor constantly overlooking her. Like, yeah, Slay Queen. This scene works really well. and then she walks back into the TARDIS and it just falls apart so quickly. I'm far from the first person to criticize Martha's constant pining after the Doctor throughout Series 3. It definitely brings down her overall character. But for her to suddenly decide to burst back in and whine about the Doctor ignoring her after her showing an awesome amount of independence and growth, it just frustrates me. Like, Martha deserved better. Like, take away this part of the ending and she's golden. So, that's the Series 3 finale. Definitely the weakest of the RTD finales if you ask me, but that's not to say it's bad. Utopia is near perfect, and the follow-up episodes hold up really well too, aside from some weird moments. Once again, the stakes keep getting raised higher and higher each series, and it's already getting to the point of the power of friendship being used to undo everything. So, how will the Series 4 finale top this? Harriet Jones. Obviously. Series 4, the final series of the RTD era, and this finale needed to be the banger to end all bangers. But is it? Yes. The finale technically begins with Turn Left, so I'm gonna begin with that. Donna has a parallel universe created around her, where she never met the Doctor, and he just fucking dies. It's a skill issue. Genuinely though, that shot of the Doctor's arm flopping out of the stretcher bearer is ingrained in my memory. Then we see all the alien invasions from the last two series, except the Doctor isn't here to stop them, and the casualties pile up. First, Martha dies, and she never becomes the hero she was destined to be. Not only that, but Sarah Jane, Luke, Maria, and Clyde were all there, and they presumably stopped the Plasmavor's plan, but couldn't get the hospital back to Earth in time. The Sarah Jane Adventures crew suffocated in space. And this is confined to background noise in a news broadcast while Donna and her family are talking. And this is just painfully realistic. The news is full of tragic stories like this, to the point where we don't even give any of these events a second thought. But when it's someone we care about, and we see the nonchalant reactions of the nobles, it really does put things into perspective. Later on, the whole of London is destroyed by the Titanic, with millions of people becoming refugees. The attitude and discrimination towards refugees in this episode really hasn't aged, and RTD ended up expanding on this topic a lot more in years and years. Then we're treated to probably the darkest scene in Doctor Who, full stop.
Labour camps. That's what they called them last time. It's happening again.
As someone who watched this episode as a kid and didn't understand what exactly was happening in this scene, Donna perfectly represents that. But now, I'm more like Wilf, understanding the tragedy and horrifying nature of this scene. It's so perfectly sad, and this is the kind of stuff I would love to see in the new RTD era. Eventually, Donna goes back in time to prevent herself from never meeting the Doctor, and the only way she can do that is by walking in front of a truck. God, this episode is grim and I love it. It's such a great opening for the finale. It establishes all the characters that will be in the next two episodes without you even realizing. It's also brilliantly dark. The stars are going out is such a simple yet great line. There are some plot holes you could point out, like why didn't any previous Doctors stop all the invasions? Or how come the Titanic only destroyed London when it was meant to destroy the whole world? But it was probably the Time Beetle changing history to preserve itself. Overall, a great setup for a finale that also works incredibly well as its own episode. Now for the Stolen Earth. We start with all the characters being introduced, and you can tell this is going to be a big one. Then the opening titles begin, and oh my god, the serotonin. The Doctor and Donna go to the Shadow Proclamation, the Doctor drops some sick bars, and eventually they find a way to trace the planets. But they get to the end of the trail, and nothing. But that's not all that's been going on. Back on Earth, all the Doctor's companions have banded together on Zoom, due to Harriet Jones' former Prime Minister.
Marvellous woman. I voted for her.
Did not.
It's heavily implied in Aliens of London that Harriet was a Labour MP, and because Wilf is also a big monarchist, it's entirely likely that Wilf was a Tory. I'll let you come to your own conclusions on that. So, the Doctor's friends all join forces, using the technology they have to try and contact the Doctor. With this, and the whole unit using the TARDIS to send Donna back in time and turn left, there's a strong theme in this finale of the impact the Doctor has on those he meets. Then, the Doctor and Rose see each other from a distance. They begin running to each other, but keep in mind, the Daleks had not exterminated the Doctor once in the entire history of the show up until this point. Then, we end with the ultimate cliffhanger. The Stolen Earth is just absolutely perfect. So much happens, yet everything feels so perfectly balanced, and not a single moment is wasted. It's just so epic and impactful. Common RTDW. Now for Journey's End. This episode gets kinda shunned by the fanbase due to it not being as eventful as The Stolen Earth, but it's still an absolute banger, cry harder. I'd say it does have a couple more flaws than The Stolen Earth, to be fair. Firstly, you'd expect an episode as monumental as this to have at least one proper death of one of the main characters, and there's a perfect opportunity for that with Jackie, but then she just survives due to incredible timing. Now, I don't have anything against Jackie Tyler. Like, we stand. But come on, there was a perfect opportunity here for a massive increase in tragedy, and it just doesn't happen. It's not even like Jackie actually does anything for the rest of the episode. We also get to see the dark side of the Doctor's influence. We saw the good the Doctor causes in Turn Left and the Stolen Earth, but now we see that his influence turns people violent, willing to kill themselves and others, blowing up the entire Earth for the Doctor.
But this is the truth, Doctor. You take ordinary people and you fashion them into weapons.
I know some people say this is kind of ironic coming from Davros, but that's kind of the point. Davros is enjoying bringing the Doctor down to his level, making him directly acknowledge that he isn't perfect. That in the end, there are more parallels between them both than the Doctor would care to admit. Now, on that note, I've got to mention Davros. After Davros first appeared in Genesis of the Daleks, he appeared in every Dalek story for the rest of the classic era. Just because. I don't have anything against Davros, but, you know, it would have been nice to let the Daleks do their own thing every once in a while. But here, his return feels earned, especially since he grew this Dalek empire. And bro, Julian Bleach kills it in this role.
Nothing can stop the detonation! Nothing! And no one!
Oh my god, you are insane, and I love it. Also, Donna is the Doctor's real mother, suck it nerds. That scene with the TARDIS landing in the Crucible, the Doctor emerging, shrouded in light, just like in the fires of Pompeii, only for his attempt at rescue to fall flat. Oh yeah, then Davros yeets Donna and she becomes the timeless child or something. I'm getting to this bit, I promise. So, the Daleks are defeated. But Dalek Khan, who wants the Daleks destroyed, convinces the more violent Metacrisis Doctor to destroy them all. I mean, yeah, genocide is bad, but it's the Daleks. How was the main Doctor going to deal with them instead? Then Rose gets a half-human clone of the Doctor to be with, alongside living in a much more peaceful parallel universe with her family. Yeah, she really got the short end of the stick here, huh? I mean, could be worse. At least she didn't get her memory wiped or something. Oh. This scene is very, very sad. Everything from how the Doctor can't even make eye contact with Donna at first, to her look of panic as she starts saying binary over and over. And then we realize why. Why River gave Donna that look when she realized who she was speaking to. Imagine not just dying, but forgetting all those adventures. Traveling with the Doctor changed Donna's life. She finally felt like she was worth something, after being put down by her mother her whole life, only for it to get ripped away. And oh my god, it is sad. I don't care what anyone says, Journey's End is a brilliant finale to the RTD era. It's got tension, it's got tragedy, it's got Torchwood. And if you ask me, that's all you need for a banker episode of television. Alright, it's time to address the elephant in the room. A common criticism of RTD series finales is that they rely on Deus Ex Machinas to defeat the enemy. And yeah, I can understand that. Series 1 ends with Rose becoming a god and yeeting the Daleks. Series 2 has the Void able to slurp all the Daleks and Cybermen inside no matter where they are in the world at lightning speed. Series 3 has the Doctor becoming Jesus due to the power of friendship. And Series 4 has Donna being able to stop the Daleks by flipping some switches, which are in the basement of the Crucible for some reason. There's no denying these endings can feel a little cheap, but here's my defense. The reason these finales work is because they have backstory, they have build-up, and they have consequence. In Series 1, the heart of the TARDIS had already been established in Boomtown, and the Doctor ends up using a regeneration because of the events of the episode. In Series 2, the Doctor and Rose are separated as the walls between universes close. In Series 3, the Archangel Network had been established as a mental link for everyone on Earth, and the power of words had been used back in the Shakespeare Code. Also, Series 3 ends with the Doctor losing the only other Time Lord left in the universe, as well as Martha leaving. And Series 4 ends with Donna losing all her memories, and the Doctor ending up alone again, which results in him becoming corrupted, culminating in the waters of Mars. I'm not going to try and defend the resolutions themselves, especially Series 3, but honestly, if it wasn't for the tragedy that results from these resolutions, I would be a lot less forgiving of them. But no matter what, Russell definitely knows how to write a good finale, and is great with adding that layer of tragedy and bittersweetness to his endings. I can understand why some people may consider the resolutions to be cheap, but I think they work a lot better than people give them credit for. So, are the RTD finales good? Yes.